Welcome to the Esoerotic Dark Feminine Magic podcast. My name is Crimson, creatrix of Esoeroticism, and I help mystically minded folks awaken their dark feminine magic. Welcome to the Portal of Enchantment. Hello, it is Crimson, and welcome to our July Rambles and Musings. So, this is just our monthly podcast where I just ramble on with no notes, with no outline about whatever is on my heart. And if you have been following along this year, really in any of my content, you know that I have been real hot on thresholds and paradigm shifting. And so, yeah, and I also want to start off saying how grateful I am to even have you here listening or interested in what I have to say. I hope it never seems like I take for granted the fact that I can come on here and film something and people are interested in listening. And so thank you. I mean, it's not a ton of people, let's be real, but that's something actually that will align with what I'm seeing in the new paradigm. So what a preview. But yeah, so in this last month in June, I had done a podcast, a rambles, about the threshold, this new paradigm that I'm sensing and how esoeroticism was evolving within it. And something I had shared was that, I had ended our multiverse membership just because it felt like it was complete, that I was sensing a new emergence of esoeroticism. And, then what I've done, so I think I posted that in mid-June, and I think it was around June 13th. I went off social media and I've done maybe like one newsletter, one Substack since then, and it's over a month since then, for timing purposes. And the reason for that is because I felt like I really just needed to pull back. It's Cancer season. I'm a Cancer. And so I do like during Cancer season to get a little intuitive, to get a little hermity. And it made me think about how last month I was saying we are in a tower moment, like things are falling. So I will not repeat myself. I definitely recommend listening to that one if you want my thoughts on the changing paradigm in general and how people are reacting to it or approaching it. But what I was thinking was how I really like the idea of us not experiencing the shifting paradigm that we're moving through right now as a tower moment, as something that has to be chaotic and tumultuous and extremely uncomfortable. Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. Hello, change is uncomfortable. We talked last month about the snake shedding its skin and how that doesn't feel super comfortable, but that's the only way that we can express who we've grown into. And so I've been thinking this past month about like, well, what if we know and we sense this new paradigm, and instead of experiencing it as a tower, we chose a few other different tarot cards. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe it's like the hermit card, where we just have some time where we separate from the world to really hear our own inner voice. Maybe we evoke our hanged man and we start seeing things from a different perspective. And then maybe we embrace the death card and we choose what we are releasing autonomously before it's forced from our hand. And so that's kind of where I wanted to start off, this idea of deconstructing from the old paradigm, releasing from the old paradigm, and yeah, how that is going to affect us in terms of not being forced into a new reality, but choosing an empowered way to step into it. And so, yeah, something else that has been really interesting that I have found is this concept. I'm not a human design girly. So if you're listening to this or watching this, you may know human design a lot more than me. But what I have been listening and reading more about from human design is this idea that we are in a change of times. And hey, maybe that is, it's not the reason why I started speaking to this change of paradigm. I didn't really know about the human design thing until more recently. I was speaking more from just a lived and felt experience and also astrological. I've had so many human design readings, it just does not stick to me. I know like the basics, but I'm sure that's how many people feel about astrology. We all have to pick our own systems. But they have this thing where it's like we've been living the past 4,000 years in, it's called the cross of planning, and that we're moving into, in February 2027, into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And I will not pretend to be an authority on this by any stretch of the imagination. But what I really liked is that it resonated and it gave words to what I have been intuitively sensing. What is old paradigm? What is new paradigm? And so the idea, I mean, there's going to be doomsdayers with everything saying that, oh my gosh, on this date, everything changes. No, from how I understand human design works, it's that people born from that day forward have a different energetic imprint, something about an emotional sacral center. Listen, like I said, I'm not, I'm not an expert, but the idea is that people born from that point on just have a different energetic imprint from us who were born during the cross of planning. And so it's going to take time for this to evolve. And so with that being said, but I'm like, ooh, this is the energy that I am sensing. And so the idea of the time, these past 4,000 years, according to the teachings of Ra in human design, is that it was all based on structure. It was all based on systems. And it was all about kind of going along with systems in order to experience safety, stability, and not questioning within them and not claiming sovereignty or individual identity within them. And so we can kind of really see how that is coming to a head right now. So think about how this has been a really good thing for humanity. Like we had schools, children could be educated. We had governments that could, tend to roads. We had libraries. That's awesome. People had religious centers where they could come together to worship. So yeah, the systems, the structures were very, very helpful, necessary, needed, aligned with the time that they arose. And I'm not saying like all that's going away. That would be a wild proclamation. However, I mean, even think about the money system, how we have just kind of all just said this system exists. I operate within it, and I don't really question it too much. And then it plays also into the idea of identity within systems. So something that may feel a little bit more familiar to you is the left versus the right, the Democrats and the Republicans, or the Christians or the Muslims, or pick your whatever your identity is. And this idea that I'm German, like I'm Mexican, I'm Australian, whatever, this identity. I mean, we see it. We just had 4th of July here in the United States, and we see patriotism and how people cling to that identity of I am an American, even though I know that's the wrong. I mean, just saying that I'm American seems wrong because there's a lot of other countries on the American continent, but I'm a gringo. But you know what I'm saying? This empowerment of belonging to part of a bigger group and really giving away the questioning of, do I align with this? Is this who I am? You see it in corporate. So this idea, and this is really starting to fall away, but this idea of like, think about our parents' generation. They got a job, whether it was at the factory or it was in some kind of business, whether it was on a farm, whatever. And it was, you belong to this system and we will pay you and you give your life to us. And they really did. And then we, giving 40 hours a week to it at the minimum, right? And just not questioning, like, okay, I will be obedient within this system. And what we're seeing now is like all of these structures and these systems and these operations, as when things change and we see evolution, we tend to see things really come to a head of toxicity. And we're seeing that these corporations no longer care for their employees. We see that government is being abused from those from within for their own advantage. We see religious systems preaching hate or exclusion through religious teachings, through the manipulation of religious teachings to other people. We see a lot of abuse of power within these systems. And I feel like it's coming to a head now where it's so apparent. So that really does feel like, okay, yeah, we must be at a time, because we're really seeing the toxicity in all of this. So that is kind of the idea of this old paradigm we've been in. And then, according to the prophecy of human design, we are entering the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And the idea of within that is that we reclaim identity and we start to recognize who we are individually beyond the systems that we've been conforming to. And it also speaks to leading from intuition versus logic, which we talk about here all the time. In fact, we were talking last month about how you really can't depend on logic right now, because logic is tied to the old paradigm. And as we're shifting into a new paradigm, what we conceive in the conscious mind hasn't been experienced in the new paradigm. So we're just going to be making decisions from something that no longer works. And this makes sense about, okay, we're going to be intuitively led. We're going to be self-identity led. And of course, there can be a lot of problems that come with that, right? Hello. I was talking to Tara, our in-house astrologer, the other day about this, about how, there's definitely some scary potential of people not feeling like they actually need to learn, that they need to gain their wisdom outside of themselves, and that could become really problematic in a lot of ways. So of course, there's always going to be a shadow, but I think what's really cool is what's starting to happen right now. And change doesn't happen in an instant. It happens through process. And I believe that a lot of us, okay, tell me if this resonates, because I talk to a lot of people, because your girl's chatty. And so my friends and my community and clients who exist outside of systems. And I'm not saying fully outside of systems. I'm saying, because, we're all kind of tethered in one way or another. None of us have escaped patriarchy or capitalism or, trading beans for our services or whatever. But the people who are not so deeply identified within systems seem to be noticing it first. These are people who are maybe entrepreneurial or have their own small businesses. These are people who maybe aren't in maybe a typical family structure where that's kind of an identity they exist within, or anything that is like, in an educational system or a religious system, the government system, people who are kind of not surviving within that right now and kind of consumed, not just throw family in there, but I know if you're, a lot of people I talk to don't have kids, and so, or their kids are grown. And so they have that space to start to notice things within themselves when they're not caretaking others. And this could be the elderly as well. So anyway, a lot of people in systems are trying to fix the systems right now. and they're trying to fix and maintain systems that are so broken. But that's where they're existing, and they're not really noticing the shift outside of it. Where I've noticed people who, like me, I just don't go to a job. I work for myself. I'm not in some kind of like structured educational system. I'm not like entrenched in the church or anything like that. And I feel like those of us who, if this is you, maybe you notice this too, are starting to notice the shifts first. And so the idea is, okay, if we're noticing these shifts, what do we do? Like, how are we supposed to be the ones called first to start moving into the new paradigm? Well, like I said, I don't think it's going to just be like sunshine, lollipops, rainbows. I think something's going to be, we're going to be experiencing things collectively that are going to be challenges. But if we are aware of like, yeah, but these challenges are bringing us into a new paradigm, like, we're not going to put our attention into using like duct tape and bubble gum to try to fix something that so clearly wants to crumble, which is scary. But the idea is to start thinking about, what could this new paradigm look like? And so if we're not being led by logic, which is the craziest thing to deconstruct from, I'm going to be totally honest with you. And that's been something that, like I said, me finding this silence and this hermit life this past month has really opened me to a realization that I lead from logic so much. Hello, that's how we've been taught to lead. And from old conditioning, things that we are subconsciously unaware of the fact that we have been conditioned and living in a way that is so misaligned with our authenticity. So I believe we are asked to be following our intuition, but our intuition based in knowing ourselves authentically, who we are, beyond external influence. And then allowing, like I keep saying, like, allow yourself to be led by your turn on. And I say that because a lot of times we're playing with this in Esoerotic Body right now, which is this cool program that I'll definitely be offering again. But this idea of, okay, you can listen to your body, and your body can give you a yes, and your body can give you a no. But can you calibrate your body to recognize deep-seated turn on? And that is what you want to pursue. But that requires deconstructing from this idea of like, I can't trust that, or okay, I'm turned on by this idea of being someone else that's not really me. And so, yeah, the first thing we got to do is deconstruct. Who have we been performing as? And here's the thing. If you're like, I kind of do what I want to do, I don't feel like this is for me, this is probably most definitely for you. It's for all of us. No one on this earth has not been influenced by some kind of external influence. It's untrue. And so we're layers, and we're constantly peeling away the layers, which is why I love this dark feminine work. But I use the example of like, okay, something really obvious. I went to college with an accounting major, which did not last for very long. But I did that because my parents wanted me to. And I thought, okay, this will like give me a stable future. Okay, so that is an example of like very obviously being living your life in a way that is misaligned with your inner, what they use in human design, the word authority. And I like that, your inner authority. I speak obviously more through an astrological lens, but your blueprint, your energetic, authentic self. And so, yeah, then there's then and this is the challenge, the unknown unknowns. And these come through when we meet resistance. So another example I was given, so I'm also part of a business coven with me and my biz bestie, Emily Rose. We run a business coven. As an aside, I love this group because we are basically in a group of people speaking about doing work differently. I did a presentation on Neptune yesterday. It was so fun, and how the hazy reality that we're moving through in our lives and in our work. But that's just an aside. If you are a business person, you may enjoy that group. But yeah, I was saying in that, even in my work for so long, I felt like, okay, I teach erotic embodiment, so I need to lead with this concept of like sensual pleasure, return to your feminine essence. And I used that language and that messaging for a long time, and it always felt like, ugh. It felt like eye rolly to me. And what has been emerging is that that's not why you like this work, Crimson. You like this work because it guides you and other participants into the depth of your primal self. When you can get to that depth through esoeroticism, through the subconscious work that we do within it, but also just through like the reclamation of like your raw eroticism, you can go so much more deep in like your shamanic work, in your meditative work, in your any kind of dark feminine type of experience, your shadow work. It opens up a whole new world, a whole new capacity to move through deeper stories, emotions, energies. And you see how I get lit up talking about that? That's my natural imprint. And what has been really supportive for me with this is, I said last month I've started reading astrology. Ooh, I've spent probably most of the last month reading astrology. And I realized, oh, girl, that's like your thing. You're not like a divine feminine, love and light, like have better orgasms type of girly, even though that's what's so predominant in the field that I'm in. And like, I had to deconstruct that. And so really what I've been paying attention to is deconstructing from this idea of, okay, from the methodology, I should say, of when I do something, does it feel good? Does it land? Does it feel like that expansive turn on that I'm cultivating within my body? Or does it feel like pressure, like I have to do it? Does it feel performative? Y'all, that is going to be biggest, our biggest ally right now. So when I speak to deconstructing, yeah, there's things where it's like, oh, I got my bill in the mail and I have to pay it. That doesn't feel like joy. That's not my truth. Y'all, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. Yeah, we have to do the mundane tasks. I'm talking about the greater decisions we make. Should I be in this relationship? Should I live here? Should I do this work? And I understand that we have to do things to survive. So know that I'm never speaking from a toss it all away. and fuck it, do what brings you joy. Like I don't have that kind of trust fund type of reality, and I'm sure you don't either. Though if you do, come hang out. Let's do some fun things. But like the little decisions we're doing, and so that's our biggest guide. And as I've been kind of pulling back, what I have found is that I have become way more sensitive to anything that feels performative or grifty or attention seeking. And this is what I have, and I do feel like this is collectively where we're all coming. This is where we're all headed. And so let me give an example. So I said I've been off of social media for a month, and it was like, I don't think I was like addicted to it, but I definitely had the impulse to scroll. That is gone. Praise Jesus. But what I was realizing was that it was making me feel like, ugh, the idea of having to post anything on Instagram specifically. I was never on TikTok, and I don't really want to be on a platform where I'm consuming without creating. That's a personal Crimson thing. And so, and it felt, and it also felt like this is not honoring my energy. So I had to log on the other day quickly to pull an email that I knew was in one of my messages. And I logged on in my computer, and there's like definitely over 30 messages waiting in there. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. And it felt like I felt it in my body, almost like yeah, you're leaking all of that energy all day. And it's social media. Hello, we're supposed to socialize. So I'm not saying like how dare someone DM, like that's what the platform's meant for. So I'm not being disregarding that at all, and being ungrateful that people want to connect, because hello, I love connecting. But it made me realize how it's gotten to the point. I'm sure you've heard this. You probably heard this on social media, the irony of it all, but how we connect with more people in a day than people back in the day would connect to in their entire lifetime. And that's like a big energetic pool or drainage. And so, yeah, really me thinking I'm going to go back to social media when it turns me on, when I feel ready, but in a way where it's definitely going to be a lot more limited, because I see social media really changing as we have the nodal shifts as well, where it's going to be a lot more about how can we offer to the collective. And you know what, Tara and I will do a podcast next month on the nodal shifts, because they're shifting. Oh no, we talked about it in the July. So go back to the July astrology podcast with Tara, where we talk about the nodal shifts of it going, the North Node going into Aquarius and the South Node into Leo. Like, no one cares about your fucking haul. No one cares about your, your new skin routine or your day in the life or whatever. It's like more collectively oriented. And so here's what I found with social media that was like why I didn't want to participate. It was because I have gotten so sensitive that to anything that feels inauthentic, and to be successful on social media and with the algorithm, come on, you gotta say the right hook, you gotta be really clever. The idea of having to post something clever makes me want to vomit. And I used to see it as a creative challenge. I used to love creating for social media. And what I have found is that it feels so performative now to like bow down to the algorithm. Well, if I have to say it this way, and I have to make it look this way, and it has to be super clever. And I'm still on Substack. And so if you're not on Substack, it's long format content. People write blog posts essentially, and there's like a button where that's your inbox, and it's people who you subscribe to, and you can read their blog posts. And then there's another feed that is kind of like a Twitter or a Threads feed that is just kind of like short, quippy things. And every time, I try not to go on that one, I try to go right to my inbox, because you can tell people are like crafting the perfect one sentence statement that like activates, that makes you think they're so clever. And I didn't even speak about, obviously, like the fear mongering or something that is just like hyperbolic or overly dramatic, because it clickbaits people in, and you can see like, oh my God, this person, they spent like a half hour crafting this brilliant statement, and then they hit send and they're like, come on, make it go viral. And I'm sure a lot of them do, but that makes me want to and because it's inauthentic. Now, there are people using it in a way where I'm like, it doesn't feel like it's pandering. I don't mind that people sell their shit on social media. Hello, I sell my shit on social media. It's a reality. It's a form of marketing at this point. I don't care that at all. But when I can tell that it was created in the sense of let this go viral, and it's not how someone would naturally speak, and that it's based on like a statement crafting taught to them by a business coach or something, no, your girl's got no tolerance. And so I don't know if you've noticed, I talk a lot. I'm very verbose. And so the idea of having to distill anything that I want to share down to like a catchy, clever quip just doesn't feel me. And I'm sure I'll be back, and I'm sure I'll be doing that, because, here we are surviving. Spoiler, this is my work. This is my job. I pay my mortgage by selling my work. We're all fucking adults here. I'm not just doing this. Well, I'm not doing it for likes, and I'm not doing it just out of the kindness of my heart. It's my work. This is my job. And so, yeah, I'll have to go back on social media and I'll enjoy it for what it does offer, because what I can say is that, ooh, what I did, I heard, oh, I have to share this. I really like this idea, but let me complete my first thought. What it does do is it informs and it connects us. And I love that aspect of it. And so when I can get over my ick for it, and it does feel like something that my body's telling me, yeah, this will be fun, be creative, go do it. And I'll interact in a different way. But I love connecting and speaking about my work, and um, hearing about other people's work and other people's philosophies and thoughts, and all of that through long form content like this, like a podcast. Love doing these. I love doing newsletters. I love Substack. So because that's my turn on right now, that's what I'm going to be doing. And I think that's how we deconstruct from the old paradigm. Is your mind is saying you got to be on social media, your body's saying it feels like I'm gonna earl. Listen to your body. Who knows why? It's illogical. But this feels very resonant. And we talked about this in the business coven yesterday, and how we're going to be doing a challenge of like how we're going to promote our work outside of social media, because I think a lot of people are feeling the sensitivity to it. On the other hand, I want to not poo poo on the social medias, because what it has done is it's connected us and it's allowed for the dissemination of information that we did not have access to before, probably too much. But I read on Substack this assessment of how social media, and it's so funny because this was a Substack and he's talking about, there's so many different modalities or belief systems all talking about changing paradigms right now. There's the human design, there's the astrology, there's the fourth turning people, there's yeah, there's just a lot of just different systems. The fourth turning has a little bit more of like a bro-ness to it, but I don't mind it. I like some bro stuff every now and then, but it's not mystically based. And yeah, like psychoanalysts all have been saying the same thing. Like it's a change of cycles right now. It just seems to be a bigger change in cycle than usual. So, but he was saying in this Substack about how the rise of the internet and social media was so necessary for us to step into the new paradigm, that we actually couldn't shift into the new paradigm without it, because he likened it to a mycelium network. Isn't that cool? This idea of like, because of the internet and social media, we now have the ability to connect with people from around the world. We're all interconnected now, which to me feels really important if we want to deconstruct around systems and identity within certain groups and organizations and structures. And so, because now we can, did I say with the new, oh yes, I think I did say with the new paradigm within human design was saying that it's like a return to identity. And we saw that, hello, we've talked about that on here with we had the Neptune and the Saturn conjunct at 0 degrees Aries, and we've had a lot of different things where, okay, this is where I think we're going. Maybe this, some of it may be redundant, but just to be real clear, I see this new paradigm is that we are claiming individual identity, and the only way we do that is by deconstructing, and what I always say with Magick, know thyself. So we're learning about ourselves. Who are we individually, outside of systems, outside of relationship with other, outside of who we've been taught we need to be or who we have to perform as? Because not blaming ourselves, that worked in the old paradigm. In fact, that was the energy of the old paradigm. You had to kind of mask your identity to survive, to be part of the systems and the structures. And now, like, it's not working. Have you noticed people are just very either clinging to their identity. Hello, MAGA, you know, and I'm sure there's a lot of us doing it in the mystical or witchcraft communities as well. There's even talks of human design being cult like and whatever. I think if you're enjoy the information or the substance of a community, just because you're part of a community doesn't make it a cult. But yeah, I guess I think there can also be cult like behaviors in everything. I digress. If your main identity is that of something outside of yourself, I'm Irish, you know, that's my identity, you know, that's kind of what we're really starting to release. But that was so just natural back in the day. I mean, I think of my parents' generation, they have no clue. Whenever I speak to them about like my desires and my individuality, you know, their eyes are like kind of crossing, like, what is this girl talking about? Like, just do the thing you're supposed to freaking do and you'll be happy and you'll get the things that are promised to you, you know. Well, that does not exist anymore. We're not going to be getting the pensions, you know. We're not being taken care of by our employers. We're not going to be able to just blindly trust a government. None of that we're seeing is true anymore. And so what was once true is no longer true. That's kind of how to put it. And so yeah, we're being really called to say, who am I? Who am I as an identity? And not from like an egoic, like worship me, like I'm this special snowflake. Like, no, we're all special snowflakes. But it's really, to me, that's what makes diversity. Diversity is what makes the world so beautiful and actually like functional. You know, we're all not meant to be accountants, but some people are meant to be accountants. We're not all meant to believe in, you know, this Christianity, but some people are meant to believe in Christianity. But I even think that it's not going to be like these systems and these groups dissipate. It's more like they're decentralized. The idea being like very Pluto in Aquarius, this idea of decentralization. And that, so the best way I can think about it right off the top of my head is the idea of Catholicism. I grew up Catholic. And in the Catholic Church, there's the Pope, and he's at the Vatican, and he determines, you know, who all the bishops and the cardinals and, you know, everything runs through the Vatican. And so there's Catholic churches all over, but they all filter up to the Pope, right? And the idea is that in the future, yeah, there are people who are still Catholic, but they don't got to report to the Pope. Like, people will just be creating their own religious groups or spiritual groups, maybe. And maybe its religion won't be as much as a dogmatic conception, and maybe it can be more fluid based on region, or, you know, the social climate or resources, whatever. And so I really like that idea of decentralization. It's not that we're all rugged individuals and we're all like, it's all about me and I'm going to be an individual survivalist during the zombie apocalypse. No, I just believe this idea of that there's like one overlord and we all got to just follow the overlord is going to be slowly dissipating, maybe faster than we think. I don't know. Listen, I can maybe future forecast, but I'm not an oracle where I can know this is going to happen. Anyone who thinks they know it's going to happen, they don't know. So unless maybe they do know, but I do not think that there's any certainty in the future, because I believe that we create the future and that we are creating right now based on the arising energy that we're all tapping into. We could go one way, we could go another. There's a lot of cool speculation happening. And we actually in Esoteric Body last night, we kind of went off on a tangent and we were talking about the aliens. So sorry if you missed that, but who knows, maybe the aliens are coming, giving us alternative fuel sources. You know, maybe there is going to be something a bit more chaotic. Maybe it's just like this subtle shift and everyone walks out of their jobs. I don't know what the future holds. All I know is that what used to work no longer works, and we're not meant to be clinging to the old paradigm. And that when we choose to deconstruct from that and we start moving forward into the new paradigm in ways that feel illogical and uncomfortable, because even though you're following turn on doesn't mean it's like this is so easy. That's a challenge. Recognizing like, what are my natural inclinations? Do I generally, when something gets uncomfortable or I get stressed, do I freeze up, or do I head in? We were talking about this actually in Business Coven. You got to join the Business Coven if you have a business. This is the stuff we talk about. Emily had kind of shared these different stress responses when it comes to your business, and recognizing, okay, spoiler everyone, I'm a fighter. So I will triple down, quadruple down when I get stressed about something, or when something's not working out. And so when you were in an uncomfortable situation, you don't want to say, well, I'm not going to do this thing because it doesn't feel comfortable, and so therefore I must not be being led in that direction. This is why understanding turn on, in a way where you can move through discomfort, real top notch stuff, because we don't want to be avoiding using like intuition as a way to avoid doing something that's just hard or uncomfortable or new or unfamiliar. This is where you have to know thyself, and you know thyself by tapping into the wisdom of your body, of listening to how your body responds to things. But also, I shared in the previous podcast, in the June ramble, that I was feeling really pulled towards astrology, and how I've been studying astrology more and doing readings behind the scenes. And something that I was very naturally pulled to, this first time I'm sharing this publicly, is I have been doing behind the scenes these astrology brand world guides. So these are for people who have solopreneurship or small businesses that are aligned with who they are as a person, that they want to reflect in their businesses who they are personally. So someone like me, or someone who, has their own therapy business, or mystical business, or, movement studio, whatever, and they want to be reflected. They want to express themselves through their brand, I guess personal brand or small business. And so I've been really playing with what part of your astrological chart is your authenticity when it comes to your visual branding, your copy and your language, your clients that you're speaking to. I know this is getting a little businessy, but you see, I get really excited about it. And then it has like what makes you shine, where you're here to transform, all of that stuff, the emotional imprint of your business. And I pull all of that and I do a astrological reading around that. But then, you may or may not know, I used to be a graphic designer and an art director in an old previous life, and I used to do brand books all the time, and specifically that were meant to evoke the world around the brands. Not necessarily like designing their logo and like laying out their website, although I've obviously done that, but that's not what this is. This is really creating a visual guide, and an energetic imprint and an emotional guide around people's work through their astrology. And it's so like, I could have never conceived that. That was just kind of something that unraveled when I opened up. And I love putting together these because it's like astrology and creativity. And I love visual creativity and I love energetic creativity. And I really think a lot of people are maybe being forced or maybe being called out of more corporate work and creating their own businesses. And I was like, well, this seems really aligned. So anyway, look for that offer to come soon. Look for a bunch of offers to come soon. I feel like this is my last month of really being in this nebulousness of hermitness. And another deconstruction thing. This is something that I forgot to share. As we're deconstructing from the old paradigm, really playing with how can you do things differently than you have been doing things in the past, specifically around where you are running up against a wall and continuing, because logically this is how we do things, so let me push a little harder, let me push a little harder, let me push a little harder. And really questioning, well, why am I doing it this way in the first place? A question I have been asking myself is, if there were no consequences, which direction would I head if I have to move? You know, if I'm moving, doesn't matter the consequences, which way am I moving in? And something that I have been trying to very consciously deconstruct that exists in my subconscious, that I realize is my affinity to hustling and overworking and overgiving and existing within this. I have to work 40 hours a week. I have to work from 9 to 5 or whatever, like these random ass structures that don't really apply to me. And I think I've spoken to this in the past. It's always going to be, I have some energetic imprints that feels very default to me. Just work a little harder. And so what I've been doing is like really challenging. Do you have to be at your computer at this time? Do you have to work 40 hours a week? Do you have to work Monday through Friday? And so what I've been doing is I've been getting up and walking on the beach. I try to do it like 3 days a week. The cool thing, so I moved to be near the beach. Now, why last year I barely went to the beach? I was doing a lot of work on the property, yeah. But this year I'm like, hell no, girlfriend. This is like, you don't have to go and sit on the beach every day, though I would like to do that more. But just, oh my gosh, I love it. I get up, I make like a tea or a matcha, and I go for like an hour and a half, and I just either listen to the waves or I listen to a podcast, whatever. And I just, usually both, and just kind of like do my thing. And actually, a lot of times when I'm walking, I'll get like these, I hate the word download, but it's kind of like a download, this idea. Let's just say it's the brain working. I get an idea that seemingly comes out of nowhere, and I'll take notes. And I have a note page from the past month that is ungodly, that I really need to start organizing and going through. But yeah, just like when you allow that space, the realizations that come through. And so I've been really saying, if there's no if there's no consequences, if there's no guaranteed outcome, if if it's either way, things will either not work out or will work out, what direction would you head in? Well, I would freaking spend more time at the fucking beach. And I love walking. It's such a random thing. Maybe it's not random, but I love walking. I love walking by myself with my thoughts. And so, and hello at the beach. And oh my gosh, I grew up in Jersey. I grew up at the Jersey Shore, and just summers are a little chaotic there. And I love it. Jersey Shore is like my favorite place on the earth, which probably means I need to travel more. But anyway, I'm in a beach town in North Carolina now, and it's so different. It's so much smaller, and I can just go and park like right at the beach. Go, you're not like sitting in traffic. There's people, but it's not like so crowded. There's all the surf schools are out, so there's a bunch of people surfing in the morning, and that's really cool. And I'm just really fucking enjoying it. And so, fuck, maybe I'll do it 5 days a week. I don't know, but in the past I would have never done that, because that felt like a little like, who just like, because it's not at 6 in the morning I sleep. And so yeah, playing with that and taking afternoons off. I have a pool, so I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll just go hang out in the pool and read. I've read a lot more since I've been off social media also, which has been really fun. Yeah, it just feels like I'm stripping away like this on that I self-imposed restrictions that I put on myself. And that's why I'm now gonna present to you, where are you showing up and doing things, not because I don't want to suggest avoid doing things. Like, we're in a beautiful opportunity for creation right now, where you can create a brand new life and reality for yourself. That's what I really want to impress upon all of us. Like, yeah, I'm not saying like go hermit and watch TV all day. I'm not, have a movie day, get your life. But if that's like your everyday, I feel like that's a disassociation from reality and not an engagement with reality. But where do you like maybe avoid doing something that you really love? Or do you feel like you have to show up in a certain way? Or where do you know that you have toxically been showing up for me in hustle culture? And how can you consciously start to deconstruct that by making choices that are not in alignment with that? You know, that's something I'm really trying. If I'm creating a new reality, do I want it to be the reality where I was working like 60, 70, whatever hours a week that I was doing in corporate, that I was doing with the studio, all that? Or can I conceive of a new reality where I can do beach walks, where I can, you know, I love to call, you know, tomorrow actually, my girl Lily Shepherd, we have a phone call. I schedule phone calls and we're talking during my beach walk tomorrow. And yeah, like, can you start to make different choices that are in opposition to things that you know are still placating an old version of yourself or an old paradigm structure? So yeah. How long have I been going? Oh my gosh, 49 minutes. So, like I said, I never planned these. And I was like, girl, don't keep talking about the new paradigm and the threshold. I barely talked. Well, I mean, I guess this is threshold behavior, but we're seeing the threshold. I guess the point is not as a tower, but as a self-guided choice. And I wanted to share some of the fun things that's been going on since I haven't been sharing so much publicly. And I'm already, I mean, I'll share that I'm already conceiving of what the new esoteric membership is going to be, because there will be a new membership. I'm thinking, I'm very much so oh my gosh, I'm going to go into an astrology thing that's probably going to make you glaze over, but you may be aware every year we have a new time lord, a new planet that guides us. And last year I was guided for my, 45th year, I was guided by the moon. So it was very introspective, very emotional. Praise Jesus, that's over. And my time lord this year is the sun. And so I'm very much guided by the sun. And so the sun's in Cancer right now. So I'm being very Cancerian. I'm probably going to be literal with the sun placements over the next year is what I'm saying. And that I think when the sun goes in Leo, I want to be like, let's go, let's do things, let's hang out. And so I'm thinking probably by September, I'll probably start talking about it more, promoting it more. So make sure you're on our newsletter list. And that's really where I feel like I love keeping in touch. And it's used to be weekly, but I have unclenched thy butthole. And it's just when I feel like doing a newsletter now. And I've also just been recording the newsletters and putting them here in the podcast feed. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I don't put them there, but in like a Spotify or an iTunes or something like that, wherever you listen to your podcast, SoundCloud, that's where I'm just like, man, just put the newsletters in there. Read your Substack articles and put them in there. So this podcast feed is getting a lot less rigid and a lot more anything that I create or write will also be audibly available here. So you can kind of see like the newsletters where it's more personal. The podcast, sometimes they're interviews, sometimes it's me rambling. Substack is more around esoeroticism, a little more like going into like quote unquote thought leadership there. And so, yeah, those are my happy places right now. But I'm already really excited about what I'm really seeing emerge for a new membership, because I miss having classes around these things that I fucking love. But it's going to be a lot less things within it. It's going to be a very stripped back and a lot more simple, but a lot more potent. And as I said in the last podcast, like I'm really trying to claim the role as a threshold guide. And so it's all just like guiding us through the threshold of change, whether that change is in this new paradigm, whether it's like you're moving from like the mother to the sovereign queen archetype. I want to talk more about that. I think that's going to probably be my next thing, because yeah, I think a lot of people who are in my world and maybe in your world too are of the age between the mother but not a crone. And I feel like this group is going to be great for that, and just transitioning in whatever area of your life. But that's kind of what I'm hot on right now. So in the interest of not babbling too much, too late, Crimson. But in the interest of wrapping things up, I will leave it there. So hopefully there was some cohesive thread throughout this that you found supportive. I would love to hear how you're experiencing all of this. And yes, come hang out over on the newsletter. And I am wishing you all a magical rest of your morning, day, evening, whenever you are listening and watching. See you soon. Bye. Thank you for joining. Follow me on Instagram at crimson.minx and visit soerotic.com to learn to live more fully and unapologetically in your magnetic power, sensual pleasure, and unlimited creative potential.